chance to look over the minutes, and is there a motion that we approve?
So, second.
Motion second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Minutes approved. Department comments, Zach, Ashley, Zach, there you are.
Alright, so we have three rezonings that we're just setting a public hearing for. The first one is for the Statement Center. We're going, it's going from ML to BC, or ML and BC to institutional. And of course, yeah, there's the zoning map that you can get kind of image of. And then some pretty cool drone footage that we took. And then the next one is going to be the amphitheater, and that's going from RD to institutional. So you can see that here, and again, pretty cool photo there.
Oh, yeah, it was good there.
Yeah. And then the third one is River District Park, RD to institutional. Photo there. So all of these do conform to framework. Framework identifies all three of these properties as civic institutional. They were all three heard at the May 2022 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, and were unanimously recommended for approval. And so you guys are just setting a public hearing tonight for those three.
Why is the amphitheater just now being rezoned if it's
Yeah, it's
necessary?
just something that we're cleaning up, that the city's cleaning up.
Okay. Any further questions?
Alright, and then so next, we've got setting a public hearing for this planned unit development, Jerusalem Gardens. So this is a 14 residential subdivision, approximately 4 acres. And this is located south of Skyland on McFarland. Here's the aerial. You can see it's kind of an oddly shaped piece of property with power lines through the center of it. So there's gonna be 14 single-family homes, ranging from 1,300 to 1,500 square feet, 2 enclosed garages for each unit, and the pricing is stated at $175 to $210. Here's just
Sounds good.
here's the layout, and then proposed elevations, and it was unanimously recommended for approval in January, and you're just setting a public hearing for this one as well, for June 28th.
That your,
Yeah.
where is that, guys?
Right off, what's far east behind that?
Have you heard of Dreamland?
Oh, yeah, ever so,
Back up in that
I think I
area.
know where it is.
Zach,
Yes, sir.
can I ask a question? Last week, this is related, but not what you just talked about, but we had that presentation on Warehouse on Fourth,
Yes, sir.
and we heard that presentation.
So we
What happens now?
Yes, so,
Is that what we're about to
Ms.
talk about?
Giles is about to
Wow.
go through both of those DRODs.
Oh, that's good.
So,
All right.
And maybe explain again the procedure going forward of how we're doing this.
Yes.
Going forward, please.
So, yes, sir, so that was actually a new process that we threw at you guys last week. The idea is to allow you guys to see the DROD proposals going forward at admin and policy, so that you guys can actually discuss them and ask questions to the applicant, because they are not public hearings once they get to you guys at actual council meeting.
It is on the agenda tonight for a vote, if it chooses to vote, right?
Yes, sir.
Right, but then this eliminates us having to come up and present it at council tonight.
Yeah,
So
right.
you'll just vote tonight.
Or
And
maybe
what if we decide to table it for another week?
Yeah, that's definitely something that you're able to do.
Okay.
And then we can bring it back to admin and policy, and then we can discuss it further.
But going over the first one that we discussed at admin last week, this was pretty simple. I don't think you guys had a lot of questions. It's a 10-unit townhome development at the
Oh,
corner of 23rd Avenue and 15th Street. Again, where that bail bonds location is, and an empty lot. 10-unit townhouse developments, approximately 1,900 square feet each. Here's the subject property. Here is the proposed layout. The renderings, and the view from 15th Street, and then at Planning Commission, we discussed that they requested some changes to the building facing 23rd Avenue, and they've drawn out those changes for you. This was considered in May of 2020 at Planning Commission, and they unanimously recommended approval. Going into our second one that you all just talked about, Life on Fourth, Warehouse on Fourth. 6-story mixed-use building at 2104 14th Street, 190 bedrooms with commercial on the ground floor. Here's that subject property, and again, it's just this right-hand piece of that larger property that I know you guys have seen several times. 90 apartments total, 190 bedrooms. Parking will be below ground, 190 spaces with an additional 15 proposed in the right-of-way spaces on 4th Street. Here's that subject property. This is the proposed layout. You can see 4th Street at the bottom of your screen and their proposed drive. Here are some renderings of that building. This is the first level of parking. The second, this is the ground floor commercial space. And then this is getting into the unit floor plans on floors 2 through 6. Some additional renderings for you, detailing the materials, composite siding and brick. And here are those proposed floor plans for each unit. You see 2-bedroom and 1-bedroom here, and this is their proposed 3-bedroom layout. Planning Commission heard this in March of 2022. They did not recommend approval due to lack of details and concerns about location of mechanical units, the student-oriented nature of the development, sizes of rooms and storage, and the power poles adjacent to the balconies on the eastern elevation along 21st Avenue. There are changes from this. They did not change the floor plans, but they did add dimensions. They updated their parking circulation. They added some labels and some other things. We discussed a lot of this last week. What we did want to present to you guys, Mr. Wilson asked some great questions, and we got to have a discussion that I think
That's right.
we wanted to share with all of you. This is a little bit of the history of the project. You heard it in October of 2020. It was approved. They requested to extend the time for the DROD approval to be able to get under construction, and that was denied. So then in October of 2021, it was expired. They resubmitted in January, was heard in March and not recommended at that time. And then it's going to on.
I thought this had either been approved twice or one of the extensions had been granted. Is that not correct?
You are remembering correctly, Mr. Busby.
That's
There was-
amazing.
Yeah.
Write
So,
that down.
There was a project in COVID times for
Yeah,
I think it was
okay.
called Warehouse on Fourth at the time. It expired, and they came back and asked the city council back in 2020 for permission to build it, and that was that October of 2020 thing that they came back to you and said, please, we'd like to rebuild it. And then they asked me when I was the zoning officer in August of 21 if I would extend their approval again, and I denied that request, and so it expired. And now they have resubmitted this different footprint building that Ms. Giles just went over, and we went over last week with y'all.
Ashley,
Yes, sir.
not to put y'all on the spot, but I know the student housing issue was a big issue, but what's the major issue that's not being addressed here that y'all think is the major problem with this?
I was about to say, I'm gonna actually turn this over to Ms. Giles or Mr. Pons since they were at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. I hate that Ms. Williams is here this afternoon to kind of speak to, the Planning and Zoning Commission side of things also.
I'd like to know that too.
I did call Councilor Wilson, cause I wanted to get his thoughts about it, and I think it's wise to table it, but because I feel like it's been going on for 20 years. I know the mayor, and I mean, this property right there, right, Mayor Maddox, it's almost been jinxed in some ways. It's just, promise to promise, and I'm not saying broken promises, but promising things, that would go there, and then the approval finally 2 years ago, and then and which was, I thought that it would be moving forward after that approval in 2020. my main question is, how do y'all feel about the improvements that criticism or constructive criticism they took from the planning and zoning, and did they adequately do some things that maybe the PZ would have a different outcome?
Let's go back to that slide, where they specifically stated.
These two slides really detail it for you. The concerns were the student-oriented nature, mechanical units, size of rooms being student-oriented. In our definition, that refers to when you have large bedrooms and a small living space. That typically tends to be student-oriented because students will live privately in their bedrooms because they have so much space. But if a family were to live here, it wouldn't be 2 bedrooms for the kids and you can all hang out in the living room together. Essentially, the living rooms are so small that that wouldn't be functional for a family.
If I may, Mr. Tyner, my problem with this is just what the chief voiced last week, and I suspect the fire chief might have the same idea. This is a public safety issue to me, and it just really concerns me. That dead-end street, and the nearness to the bars, and the student housing. I mean, they can form it in whatever they want to say, but your grandmother's not gonna rent that apartment now.
So going off of that and the questions that Mr. Wilson had about density as far as a safety issue, here's some information on that about the changes from the 2020 version that was approved and what's being proposed now.
Right.
So in 2020, it was that entire piece between the power company and the right-of-way for 21st Avenue. So it was 2.35 acres total. It's down to 1.2 now, because it's just that right-hand portion. The beds per acre currently on this proposal are 158 beds per acre when it was previously 83. The ceiling heights have been reduced. The commercial space on the ground floor has also been reduced, and they're going from 5 stories previously to 6. Slightly less parking. And then if we go into, I know we've considered, there's a proposal coming to Planning Commission this month for July for a condo hotel on the left-hand portion of this piece of property. And so these are the numbers combined. For 2022, you see on the side, it would be all 2.35 acres that was previously proposed for just the one development. That would put the total beds per acre at 120 if both of those developments were.
Wow, you're counting the hotel rooms in that bed per acre count
Correct.
at what?
It's 92 units.
2 beds per room or what?
They are pretty much all one.
Okay.
And so the density is a concern as well.
I know that doesn't fully answer your question.
That, it answers it enough, yeah, I just was curious what calculus we apply to hotel rooms.
And then one other thing to consider for you all here is some similar developments around the city. 2700 Capitol Park is right on the other side of Little Orleans. The hub is closer back behind Buffalo Hills. We've also got Union on Frank, the hub, so you can see the comparison of those beds per acre. Do you have any other questions for all of us?
Any more questions?
Thank y'all.
Yeah, thank you. All right.
We have one last thing for you. I know
Okay,
it's a
Zach.
lot from planning.
Well,
tonight.
I'm sort of wanting, so tonight, if it's not tabled, there will be no discussion, right?
Correct.
There
No
aren't people
discussion,
signed up to
no
speak
slides.
for or against. That was the committee opportunity.
And they
Yes,
could
correct.
sign up under citizens agenda comments by citizens.
Separate.
Okay.
And the last thing, zoning text amendments that we again went over in admin policies. So these are just student-oriented development text amendments, specifically updating the university residential district purpose and intent statement to include student-oriented housing developments. You can see the university residential district here in the checkered. And so it's also adding student-oriented housing developments within our permitted use tables to clarify that they are allowed, that we are allowing student-oriented housing developments within RMF2. However, we have that maximum density, 200 beds per net site acre, not to exceed 200 beds per development. So you can see here the RMF2, the University District houses most of RMF2, that checkered, and then there's a little bit outside of it, but really most of it is in the RMF, or in the University Residential District area. And then we also are just updating the business district areas to specify where apartments are allowed. It cannot be a student-oriented housing development. And then this is just clarifying that they're not allowed in the mixed residential and mixed use districts. So again, we went through all this at the policy, just setting a public hearing for July 12th on this one as well. Any questions?
So this one, there will be a public hearing.
Yes, sir. This one, and then also the rezonings and the planning and development that I had mentioned previously.
But not until
But not,
July.
yeah, not tonight.
Not
tonight.
until July. And so if you would, and I know we talked about this relatively extensively last week, but can you back up to the first slide of that back there? Well, could you take one example that best illustrates the value to the city of this change and just walk me through it, please?
Yeah, I was gonna say,
That best illustrates the value of doing this to the city.
Yeah,
So I think all of this is the culmination of those efforts.
so go to the map, flip over to the grid map, and just walk me through one example of how this,
A great example would be that we know the developments that happen anywhere else outside of the University Residential District will not be tailored to students. So you have things, I'll pick on Mr. Lanier's district for a moment. What used to be the Avenue, which is now the Grand at Rum Creek and may have a new name at this point, I believe, which was built for students, but so far removed from campus. That can't happen anymore. We won't have student-oriented dwellings being constructed anywhere else. It accomplishes what the moratorium did, but solidifies it within code.
What
back
about-
up to the text, please. To allow the construction of student and oriented housing developments in the university area. We hadn't been doing that forever. That's where I'm
Yeah,
disconnected.
no, that's fair. This is the clarifying language that in discussions with Mr. Holmes, Mr. Woodson, we needed to add in that terminology, that student-oriented housing development terminology, just in the purpose statement. It's just clerical at
Okay.
this, it's clerical at this point.
So let me ask you a question. What happens if Stillman College decides that they want to build some student apartments out of some land that someone may will them that's in a neighborhood, but it's not covered under this?
We're gonna work with them. Honestly, I mean, I know Stillman's got some great visions and great dreams, and with the framework process as well. I know Stillman has identified some areas where they would like to go and grow, and so I think the framework zoning will help accomplish that.
Well, Ms. Kreitz, correct me if I'm wrong, but our definition of student-oriented housing development is for non-institutional projects, and so it doesn't include a dormitory. It doesn't include what the university or what Stillman College would do.
I think I misunderstood that.
Or even, I would guess, PPP projects that could be privately rented by students?
Right.
I think we'd probably have to look at those on a case by case.
Mm.
I think the one you're talking about in Ms. Lanier's district, that was at the growth of Shelton State at that time.
Exactly.
They were having people that were,
It's in District 2 though.
yeah,
Yes, in
I'm
2.
so sorry.
No, you're good.
Okay.
It used to be in District 7, huh?
District 7.
well,
That's
that's,
split it.
well, see, I'm sorry, I'm living in the past.
No, you're good.
But I thought that was, it
For the
didn't
record.
materialize as hoped. But y'all are puppies, you and
Yeah,
Walt.
that's right. See what
So,
I'm saying?
but it didn't materialize that way.
Actually, Kip, that project was involved in the sell-up to the developers from, Pennsylvania, I think that's where it's from, and, that part of the university, and,
Oh.
Shelton was ancillary, and their big deal was they were gonna run shuttles and so on, and they were able to get the dirt a lot cheaper than they could if they moved into the
Yep.
university area.
I remember that now, about the transportation especially. But, okay. What about where the lofts are now and the ones behind them? Would that not have been allowed?
Right, that faces this as well. Or that this would accomplish, not allowing something like the lofts to occur.
The one behind has changed names about
Yes.
4
Yeah,
times
whatever
already.
its name is now.
Which one's the loft?
They're the ones facing the Aldi's and the Whataburger and all that. Just the one behind it that's starting to have a lot of issues.
A lot of apartments back.
And well, and when, to me, when you start changing your name frequently, that's a sign of a problem to me. So, any further questions from our planning team? Thank you all very much. Savannah, it's good to see you back. Welcome back. Mr. Woodson.
Yes.
There you are.
This is on the, revocation hearing for Motel 6. And Chief Langley very much wanted to speak on this. He's out of town this week, as you probably already know.
Right.
When we set this a couple of weeks ago, we did not know he was out this week. He's asked us to table this so he could be here to speak. Cam Parsons represents the motel owner, and they're not opposed. And we would suggest we table it to the 28th, June 28th meeting.
Okay, yeah, that's right. 'Cause we won't
And
be
as
here
long
next
as there's no objections, we will not bring all the witnesses lined up waiting for y'all to move the table, and we will just have them come on the 28th.
That'll give us time to call that, what's that place, where it's alcohol?
Go Puff.
Go Puff, we'll call Go Puff that.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody have any issues with that?
Can I ask Cassius?
I want Chief involved.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. I'll call Go Puff. For that night. If you hadn't been through one of these before, you're gonna be in for, a treat. Mayor Maddox.
Yes, sir. First,
Good
I
word.
want to thank Mr. Bell. He allowed me to join him at his Saturday town hall at Jack's.
How many biscuits did your guys sell?
No, we sold a lot of coffee, I think.
He drank coffee. He didn't want to eat anything. He was going to his mother's afterwards. I bet he got something
He
there.
lives in Mr. Bell's district. So, but anyway, we had a great meeting, great turnout, long list of things to
Good.
work on, and as John and I were talking about, it's amazing. You know, we deal with a lot of things up here, and mainly they're at that 40,000 foot. But it's been my experience in 16 years and 100+ town hall meetings. It's all the fundamentals. It's paving, it's drainage, it's blight, code enforcement. Those are going to be the bread and butter issues. And so, anyway, I appreciate that opportunity. And this Friday, I'll be live at the plaza, and so we'll have an area. And so I hope to see everyone out there. Really enjoy. Come by, say hello, and tell me what's on your mind. Something in your neighborhood we can help and work with, and help us identify issues. We're going to be a lot of places over the summer, so we'll keep rolling this out. But just trying to get out and about and see as many people as we can. And COVID kind of stopped all that for a while.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of fun to get back out again.
I saw the city tent last Friday. I don't think we've had one before, have we?
I don't know if we have or not.
I know tourism has.
Stacy Vaughn had one.
I'm gonna
last
see
year.
if I can
Yeah.
swing a fan or two somewhere over, and maybe use my influence to get a fan or something like that. So maybe people come see me if there's a couple fans blowing.
There you
over
go.
there, they might-
Get those new fans going.
But anyway, we're excited about being over there, and we'll be hitting all the districts between now and hopefully the end of October.
Great.
That's all I have for you.
That sounds good. Sounds great. Brandy, you're up.
Yeah, so, I've got 2 boards that I need to address with you guys today. A while back, we had Historic Preservation Commission, we opened the portal to accept resumes for that one for a little while. And that was, with the idea that we were only gonna have one vacancy on HPC. But we were, notified yesterday that now we'll have two. So we'll have those two vacancies, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4 other members who actually would like to be reappointed. HBC is one of the boards where the mayor nominates these people to be appointed, and you all actually make the appointments. So the 4 that would like to be reappointed is Miss Sally Davis, Kathy Pagani, Mary Harmon Young, and Joseph Cox. And then we've got Mr. Brett Clark. He would not like to be reappointed. That was that first vacancy that we were working towards. But we also were notified yesterday that Mr. Price McGifford Jr. will no longer be returning after July. So now that we have another vacancy that we'll need to appoint, we would like to go ahead and open the portal for just a little bit longer to accept a couple more resumes to fill those 2 instead of 1.
I'd like to ask you if you would check, Buena Vista, in my district is in the historic, they're the historic neighborhood. I don't believe we have a representative from Buena Vista anymore, do we?
No.
Okay, thank you, because I know someone that was very interested in that, and that would give, the one from, because they're all downtown except for Buena Vista, so that I would love to see
Are
that.
the district, designations on what you're looking at? Can you tell us?
I would not be able to tell you.
I'm asking because with Price McGifford resigning, I don't know where Kathy Pagani lives.
Yeah, I'm not
She
sure.
lives-
I know they all have to be in a
Downtown.
historic
Does she?
neighborhood.
I think she's in Mr., would technically be in Mr. Wilson's district.
And Cox,
Yes.
College Park.
But if you're, what I would like to do with your permission is reappoint those who want to be reappointed. They've done a really good job, is my understanding. And then as Ms. Johnson said, we only right now have 2 resumes on file. Open up the portal, sound like we're in NCAA football, open up the portal and get as many resumes as possible. Whoever I recommend, I want the council to be in favor of. So,
Yeah.
so we can have a discussion about it.
Cox.
I just wondered because we used to have Beth Alloway, we used to have one
Oh, my
from
teacher.
Buena Vista since it was the only
Yeah.
outside the downtown.
She'd be a good person.
Yeah.
My teacher.
Beth Kleino Alloway.
Should be good.
Yeah.
So if it's okay with y'all, we'll go ahead and extend that deadline. And Counselor Busby, to that point, as we start getting applicants in, we'll make a note of which district they currently reside in. So then the next thing that we need to go over is Police and Fire Pension Board. That one has been open for quite some time to fill that, council-appointed position that has recently, been vacated. Mr. Brian Garrity submitted a resume. You all have a copy of it sitting in front of you, and you all were also emailed this copy. Mr. Busby recommended Mr. Garrity. He is the only resume we've received. So, once you guys get a chance to review that, if it's okay with you, we can go ahead and
Let's
appoint
get
him
him
or
before he
just-
backs out.
Yeah, my thought is if he wants to do it, go
Yes.
find.
Hey, I hope he's not watching this. We wanna encourage him, but no, he's a very bright guy, relative newcomer to Tuscaloosa. Lots of experience and background with this kind of issue. I think he'll be a great add.
Good.
Well, it was a tough decision, Brian, but you won.
So we'll have that ordinance appointing him on the 28th.
Thank you.
In the meantime, Mr. Busby, will you let him know and we'll get our team to begin, Randy, if you can make sure A&F is wrapped in and we can begin briefing him on. Well, let's wait till after he signs off and then maybe we brief him.
He's not watching today.
All righty.
He lives in Alica, and I think bought
Yeah.
a rental unit on Convent, where the old Smalleys
Mhm.
were, the alley.
Yeah, sure.
Glad to have him downtown.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Holmes,
Sir, good afternoon, council.
afternoon.
Pardon me, my digital copy broke on me, so I had to revert back to the analog. If you recall, last week we had a whole bunch of things on the committee, so that means we've got a whole bunch of things on council this week. I am about midway towards the bottom on page 2, under resolutions of ordinances not of a general nature or permanent operation. On page 27 through 28, you'll be authorizing budget and program changes to the 2020 action plan for CARES Act CDBG CV program, and to advertise those changes for citizen comments. That came out of projects last week. On page 29 through 30, you'll be amending the resolution fixing the day for a public hearing to consider the adoption of zoning amendment. Actually, they've already gone over that. I'll stop double dipping y'all on UD. Oh, you didn't cover that one. All right. To consider the adoption of zoning amendment number 1474, and that came from the Planning Commission. On page 31 and 32, you'll be amending the resolution fixing the day for a public hearing to consider the adoption of zoning amendment number 1475. That came from the Planning Commission. On pages 33 through 34, you'll be accepting storm drainage improvements located at 110 Canyon Road North. On page 35 through 36, you'll be amending the resolution establishing public art guidelines and a public art committee. That came from properties on the 7th. On page 37 through 38, you'll be authorizing the execution of a memorandum of understanding between the Office of Community and Neighborhood Services and Tuscaloosa Fire Rescue as a partnership to provide funds and assist with activities and projects that will prevent, prepare for, and respond to the spread of infectious diseases such as COVID-19. That came from projects last week. On, I believe the next two UD did go over, that would be the overlay permit district and life on 4th. And so we'll skip down a couple, and on page 43, you'll be concurring with the appointment of Savannah Nelson as acting executive director of IPS. That request comes from the mayor. On page 44 through 45, you'll be setting out the day and time for various municipal court arraignments, hearings, and trial pursuant to City Code Section 10-3, and you heard about that in admin last week. On page 46, you'll be authorizing a minor public works contract with Southern Heating and Cooling LLC not to exceed $6,185, and you heard about that in projects last week. On page 47, you'll be authorizing a minor public works contract with DSL Electric not to exceed $48,736. Again, that came from projects. On page 48, you'll be authorizing a minor public works contract with Shepherd Services, total not to exceed $13,035.24. Again, that one came from projects last week. On page 49, you'll be authorizing a minor public works contract with Paints on Us Plus. That's a not to exceed $10,100 and also came from projects last week. On page 50, you'll be authorizing a minor public works contract with McWilliams Repair. That's not to exceed $12,000 and again came from projects last week. On page 51, you'll be authorizing a minor public works contract with Crimson Carpet and Flooring. That is a not to exceed $6,453 and also came from projects last week. On page 53, you'll be authorizing the mayor to execute a contract with Sinclair Broadcast Group for advertising services for police and fire recruitment campaign. You heard about that in projects last week. On page 54, you'll be authorizing a cooperative maintenance agreement with ALDOT regarding city improvements made within ALDOT right-of-way under the Hugh Thomas Bridge for the River District Park, Martin Luther King Jr. Jackson Parkway improvements, and we discussed that in projects last week. On page 55 through 56, you'll be authorizing Joseph Colquitt to assign the lease for the lease of a hangar at the Tuscaloosa National Airport to Judson Minges, and that was discussed in properties last week. I have to get my oxygen tank here soon. On page 57, you'll be amending exhibits A and B of section 1942 of the Code of Tuscaloosa. You heard about that in admin last week. On page 58, you'll be nominating candidates for personnel board number 1. That came out of admin last week. On page 59, you'll also be nominating candidates for personnel board number 2, again from admin. On page 60, you'll be authorizing amendment 10 to the fiscal year 2022 general fund budget. That was discussed in, actually I believe that's doubled up and is in finance today. On pages 61 through 63, you'll be introducing zoning amendment 1476 to rezone approximately 7.9 acres to mixed kids. UD has already discussed that one with you, as well as the other zoning amendments further down your page. And I believe they handled the rest of those. Am I correct? All right.
Mr. Holmes, I don't have a problem with it. Why is the diversion tech training doubled up? Are we pushing to get some suspense time?
The diversion I'm sorry, which one?
The,
Just the items on the finance committee today. Yes, sir, there's just because of the, issue with the funding swap that I've discussed with you.
Yeah, no, I understand what's going on. I don't have- it was what?
We're under a crunch deal to actually acquire the equipment.
A time crunch.
Yes, sir.
We do have one quick item for executive session.
Okay. Any questions for Scott? All righty. There is a special call meeting, planning and zoning. Is this dealing with framework? Okay, that's Wednesday at 5. Personnel board, Thursday, 11 a.m. Police and fire pension, 11:15. And council work session, I almost forgot, so don't forget. Council work session this Thursday at 1:30. Of course, City Hall closed on Monday and observance of Juneteenth. No council committee meetings next Tuesday. Anyone else in the room have any comments? Anything you'd like to say? All right, is there a motion we go into executive session?
So moved. Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Mr. Holmes.
Yes, sir. As your city attorney and an attorney licensed to practice law in the state of Alabama, I can certify that this executive session is to discuss with their attorney the legal ramifications of and legal options for pending litigation, controversies not yet being litigated, but imminently likely to be litigated or imminently likely to be litigated as a governmental body pursues a proposed course of action.
I am. Okay, we have a motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.